Good evening. This is Rhonda from Hamden Action Now. We're here to commemorate the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. this evening and discuss some of the ideas of that his dream that he was looking for at his speech on the Capitol back in the 1960s and where we are. Has that dream been realized or has it turned into a giant nightmare? So we're looking forward to having this talk with y'all tonight, and let's just let's see where we are. Welcome. How are you?
Hi, I'm well. How are you?
Good. Welcome to Hamden Action Now.
Thank
On the
you.
evening of Dr. Martin Luther King's holiday and
Yes.
birthday celebration. His birthday is on Friday, and today is his
And the
holiday. Is
same as yours, right?
Yes,
King and a
I,
queen.
I celebrate with the king,
That's
the
right.
king
That's
of
what we
equality.
celebrate.
So, I wrote down some notes for myself because I didn't want to forget any of this stuff. And I said, I want to, just say today, we're wanted to come on live to celebrate and commemorate the life of Martin Luther King Jr. and his hope and the dream that he had for us reaching the promised land. And I always remember the part of his speech where he said, "I may not get there with you," but he didn't. He didn't get there with us, but I want to ask you tonight: do you think we reached the promised land? And the reason why I say that, we've already had 2 terms of a black president. Oh, wait a minute! Before you start shaking your head, no, we've got 2 terms of a black president. We have an incoming black female vice president, first time ever in the history of our country. Um, we've have several black millionaires and billionaire, and Oprah Winfrey. We've got numerous, I can go to the polls and vote. You can go to the polls and vote. Um, and I don't need to pass some ridiculous test to do that, thanks to the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Um, So I just wanted to find out, if what are we complaining about? Now, before you answer that, I want you to consider that, it might be the fact that, it's because, we're in the middle of a 100-year pandemic, the likes we haven't seen in 100 years. I know, I forgot about that. And 40%, almost half of the people that are being negatively impacted by the pandemic are Black and brown
Mhm.
because of the poor access to health care, the low wages, the poor jobs, the de-investments in education, the tax monies that were with intentionality taken from their communities and given to other communities to build their education infrastructure. All right, so that small little tidbit. Oh, and I forgot, we also have a leader in our White House that we're just coming out of for 4 years, who basically has been inciting, divisive language and white supremacy, refused to denounce white supremacy. Matter of fact, shouted out a very large white supremacist group, the Proud Boys, at a debate. He had a Muslim travel ban. He separated children at the border, said that the border, we are being invaded by people. It was an invasion. You should be very scared, be very afraid. This is what we had in our office, in our White House. We had a who's who of white supremacy groups show up to our Capitol to kill Nancy Pelosi and Vice President Pence. And our leader said, and I quote, "We had very fine people when they were anti Semitic, racist, xenophobic, homophobic people storming the Capitol with big old proud sweatshirts on about Camp Auschwitz. But he said, I love you and you're very special to me." So are we realizing Dr. Martin Luther King's dream, or is just the continuation of the ongoing American nightmare? Tell me what you think.
So I'll start by saying swastikas were drawn on some benches out here in New Haven. So that being said, without even going outside of Connecticut, it's right here. The coded language, the coded behavior. You know, the Northeast is known as a blue state, but really, the following for this type of rhetoric, behavior, and hate is still here. I mean, we even have Facebook pages dedicated to bringing down black and brown people and keeping the oppression going. Do I think we realized his dream? I don't even think we started to dream. I think that we got we got satisfied. I think that we got so used to the little, we forget to go for the lot, and so we're just comfortable being oppressed. We're comfortable being called minorities. We're comfortable being called people of color. Why does that matter? Because that's all part of the narrative. We're comfortable being referred to as an urban community. We're comfortable working for minimum wage. We're comfortable with paying for borders that should not exist. We're comfortable with dirty water. We're comfortable with people doing solitary confinement and being, held on moral turpitude. We're comfortable being criminalized. We're comfortable with our education system being compromised. We're comfortable with being over policed. In fact, we're even reliant on the police so much, we even have police policing the pets. It's amazing. I don't think we even started to dream. I think while he was dreaming, we stayed asleep.
So that's a yes to the continuation of the American nightmare.
Correct.
That's a
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, it's a hell
Uh,
yeah.
so so where do we go from here?
Well,
I kind of want to say that I don't think that they're comfortable with it. Um, I think that I mean, I know that his dream was about hope and a better future, that one day black kids and white kids would all be able to, you see what I'm saying? I think that was an aspirational speech.
mhm.
I think that he had decided that, he knew he
But
might not even
everything
get
that was
there.
done in the civil rights movement was aspirational. It was. It wasn't
And
meant to be. They all knew it.
hasn't
Malcolm
happened
knew it.
instantly.
No, but all who persevered, Fannie Lou, Medgar Evers, all who persevered, Martin Luther King, they all did it as a stepping stone. And the problem is we did not take the next step. The Panthers tried, and I'm only saying tried because they were also largely criminalized. So by the time we all figured out what they were doing, it was too late. We had already become used to rather, criminalizing ourselves. And I think right now, the time that we're in, I don't want to hear about what Barack didn't do. I want to know what we're going to do and how we're going to keep this administration accountable, because there's a lot of flaws, even right now, and this might sting. But quite frankly, in my opinion, my humblest of opinions, if the credential for VP was real, Stacey Abrams would be the VP at the very least. Credentially wise, she is the better person in my opinion. She brought it home. She brought it all. Period. But you know what
Yeah.
it is? She's not a size two, and she's not light skinned enough to fit the epitome of what black and brown leadership looks like. And that is something that we need to really understand what that means. Because
Well,
white people need to understand what their presence means in our presence. And we need to understand what that means in terms of the colorism amongst ourselves.
right. I completely agree. I think that, and I don't know if anybody want to have that discussion, but we can go ahead and have it now. Um, I think that we just evolved. I think that racism and white supremacy and white power is like a woman said in one of the Zooms I was in. She said it's like a stream. If it comes
Mhm.
to a roadblock and it's water flowing, it'll just find another way to get around and continue on its pathway to success. And I don't think that we can ignore that our country's evolved a whole lot since 1965 and since
Mhm.
1968 when Martin Luther King was killed. We really put on a great appearance. We're more politically correct now. I think the political correctness is the new racism. And
Yes.
we saw that these white supremacists are really basically had enough with being politically correct. You know,
Right.
they don't. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, they don't like black people. They made it clear, you know, and you know what? And they wanted to say that here's my face. I want to show you, and I'm loud and I'm proud, and I'm, you know, anti-Semitic. I'm racist. I'm a xenophobe. I'm everything under the sun, and I'm proud of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, you know, this is where we were in the 1960s, and everybody had a problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
Where, you know, folks would show up in their Ku Klux Klan robes and everybody was all, you know, horrified in the violence and the threats of violence. You know, just like Juwan Eastman always calls it stochastic terrorism. That's exactly what it is. It's like, it's just pop-up terrorism. You know it exists. You know, we don't know when the next, all it does is bring and create fear in everybody because we don't know when the next strike's going to come. So if the strike doesn't happen on Wednesday, when is the next strike coming? I don't know. Could it be your kid's school that they're demanding that they go back to school next week? Could it be your kid's
No,
school?
we'll be fine, Rhonda. We'll be fine in New Haven because Justin Elliker, a white man, his child is going back to school. So everybody should be A-OK. You know, black and brown people have become so used to accepting violence and acts of violence and bias toward them. You know, despite the fact this was some serious white on white crime that happened on the 6th. I mean, this had nothing to do with us. I don't care what y'all try to tell me. Had nothing to do with us. Please don't try it. However, we will end up being the target because guess what? They escorted all those people and they took their time and they were very friendly. If it were us, first of all, if we were living after the fact, you would have found the worst picture of us and all the business that I didn't even know existed would be my storyline. You know, and that's just what it is. And we need to really understand that. And it happens right here. I mean, just today, 32BJ and a few of our comrades were out there in Fairfield fighting for wages. I mean, we have people who have been on the front line that are black and brown, the rest stop workers, the domestic workers, the home health aides, the CNAs. You know, yes, nobody said that the nurses and the doctors didn't do their thing, but these folks, plus the grocery store clerks and all of them, all the domestic workers have been doing their part. But nobody cares, and they're getting sick, and they can't even get minimum wage. You know, it's happening right here. We have state legislators, black and brown, who are starting off at 28K, and they show up. Shout out to Robin Porter and Gary Winfield, Marilyn Moore. You
So
know,
is this American dream or American nightmare? Which one? I mean, are we real?
it's a nightmare.
Are we living Martin's dream or are we living the American nightmare?
I think he'd be shaking. I think shaking his head. I think he and Malcolm are sitting there, and for once, they're agreeing totally. They're like, "What is this?" I mean, here we have more technology. Here we have more capacity. Here we have more of a way to defend ourselves because the technology, especially with folks streaming on Facebook and other social media platforms, you know, unlike the violence they incurred in their time when they were standing up for themselves, we could actually document it and the whole world will see a different version of everything that just happened versus what's publicized. And we don't use our resources well. We're too busy living the white lie and trying to get out of it for that matter. That, you know, this is where, you know, a lot of things will never finish. Like the devaluation of black and brown women continued. You know, that's the species on the planet who didn't get an ounce of respect. And I think that Martin would be especially angry about that because Coretta Scott, come on, his wife, he always applauded her. He always spoke highly of her place in his life and her being there and how that made a difference to him. Where are our black and brown men? You know, but
Right.
again,
Come back for a minute. You know, black men. I'm sorry. I'm getting off
no,
my.
no, go ahead, sister.
Can you hear
Talk
me?
that talk.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, the black family has, you know, been really, as far as, you know, I can see, been really desecrated. And really our communities are founded on the black family and the black church. And both of which are now questionable. And, you know, I mean, you know, my dad was there. We went to church on Sunday. He was the taught third grade Bible study, and he was on the building fund, and we were a family, and it was okay. But today we probably wouldn't. My father probably wouldn't have a job because he grew up in a time when he was intentionally undereducated and his community was underfunded. So right now, my father probably wouldn't be able to be educated or being able to be, earn enough of an income to provide us with the lifestyle that he was able to provide us in the 1970s in this time. So, taking, there's one thing I do have to say about Joe Biden. There's one thing he does say, respect and honor and dignity comes from having a job.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with that, and if you have a situation where you can't get work or you get work that is not sustainable, then I don't know where we're going from here, and is that the American dream for Black and brown people, that you disinvested in our communities? So now, I hear about, we always have these urban asks. There was a meeting today and I was in the meeting and someone says, well, the urban communities in Connecticut are always asking for stuff, but
what's the urban community again? I'm sorry.
Hartford, Bridgeport, New Haven, and I'll throw in there Waterbury has been asking and expecting. You guys asked for the same amount of income and property taxes from those residents, while the monies were taken and given to the suburbs to grow up their education and their infrastructure. So now we come back and we keep saying, you need to bring it back. You need to give us back our resources. Now we're asking, we're begging. Well, we didn't ask anybody to take our resources out of our community. None of this works. And this is another argument that I've had with people, is that they've said that, Rhonda, it's not as stark and as you say, it's not about money. It's not money. I said, it is about money. I said, you can't tell people communities who've never had money and had money not accessible to them and opportunities, that it's not about money. Because it would be about money if it was your community.
It's always about money.
Money is the driving factor.
Well, wait a minute now. Let's go back to the origins of Section 8 for a second. If we go back to the origins of Section 8 for 1 minute, it really did not start off as a subsidy for Black and brown households. This was something that was meant for the veterans who were coming back after the war as a means for them to have housing. What happened was, when we being the Black and brown people, started taking our little slave money and buying houses, because if you think about the timeline, it all fits in. Now the government says, wait a minute, let's give them a voucher. Let's start this voucher thing. So here comes Section 8, right? So our wealth has been stolen, but it's all been revised. I mean, we get positions stolen from us. We get jobs stolen from us. We get resources stolen from us. And it's so normalized, especially here in Connecticut. I mean, the count of Black and brown people who are afraid, literally afraid, to call out of work because they don't know if they'll have a job, despite the fact that there's a global health pandemic. You have a white mayor who has no problem saying, let's send the little Black and brown kids, whom, by the way, a good number have Medicaid, so they're very low on the list to get the COVID-19 vaccine. And you add to that the fact that you have all this white supremacy in action with people scaling fences. Let me tell you something. If we decided to even spit on the door at the White House, we'd be dead. So the fact that these people were able to do that and then go back to work like nothing happened is to show you how much they push it in our face. Yet, when one of us is brutalized or are victims of this quote unquote democracy, we are criminalized instantaneously. And you hear about all the things that we didn't do and could have done and how we should have done. And then we add to it because we say, you know what, that's true. You should have done so and so. Well, guess what? The time for that is done. I don't care about your white tears. I don't care about your white guilt. I don't want to hear about what you think Obama should have done. This is our time now, and it's far, far, far overdue. The Black and brown women especially have suffered from incarceration, mass incarceration, and mass detentions. We have a lot of single parent households going on. There's a lot of women who are surviving. They're the CEO and CFO of their houses. They're tired. They haven't been respected. They're not getting paid well. Enough is enough. Enough is enough. And this is why we will be having the People's Inauguration on the 20th. We will meet at IKEA at 4 p.m. and then we will go down to City Hall at 5. Folks are invited. Information is on the Unidad Latina and Black and Brown United and Hamden Action Out pages, all of whom are co-sponsoring this event. But we cannot sit back. Our needs are important. Our existence matters. We matter. We're important. We need to have not just a seat. I need a damn table at the table. If Connecticut is serious about being so progressive or whatever word they decide to give it, because guess what? If it was Black and brown people who did this thing on the 6th, would be called criminals, not whatever term they're giving it. It would have been an act of terror, not an insurrection. Don't nice it up, okay? Cut it out. And right here in Connecticut, it happens right here. It happens right here, and it needs to stop.
Well, you know how the insurrection is going on here in Connecticut? The insurrection is going on here in Connecticut because we've got 17 billionaires that live in the state
Tax
of
the
Connecticut.
rich. Give privilege is tired of paying for the. We're tired of paying for the privilege, man. I said that wrong. We're tired. The poor people are tired of paying for the privilege. It needs to stop, and we've been doing it for too long.
I mean, just think about it. Here in Hamden, let's just use Hamden as an example. Hamden has Quinnipiac University here. People who send their kids to Quinnipiac spend a big chunk of money to they could write a big check, 20,000, 50,000, 60,000, whatever it costs. You imagine how much it would cost to send your kid to Quinnipiac if Quinnipiac paid the full property taxes like everybody else in Hamden has to pay full property taxes. Imagine what that tuition would look like. Right? So what is Hamden ultimately doing? Hamden is ultimately, the residents are subsidizing the people who send their kids to Quinnipiac. Same thing is happening in Yale. It happens all over the state, except for like the state colleges, because the state colleges are being paid by state taxes and tuition, obviously. It's these things where it's like what we're living through, I believe, is the 1960s 2.0. It's like the advanced version of it's advanced version of racism, I think, in white supremacy, because it's now 50 years later. These laws that were put in place in the late 60s and early 1970s to really legislate the morality of integration and whatnot, all as we see. I mean, I'm not too sure how successful any of it's really been. No. Because again, if we can't get people out to the polls to vote, and then once they vote, continue to stay civically engaged and make their legislators, their mayors, their board of ed, their zoning, all these people accountable, the police commission, everybody needs to be accountable, right? It takes active engagement in civil engagement in your municipality. We all run to the polls for a presidential election, even though, I don't know how much Joe Biden is going to help me specifically, some of his programs and things, definitely with the rollout of the vaccine, because he'll definitely help me with there because I'm going to get the vaccine. But as far as that's concerned, I don't know what else. But you can't get very few people to come out to a municipal election, and God forbid a primary. So, but they'll be the first one to complain about the school system and the busing and the books and the curriculum. But I'm like, so how do you fix that? You're paying them. They're taking your money every 6 months. You write a check, you give them the money, but then you let them take the money and do whatever they want with it. That's right. I mean, it's really disgusting that you got 17 billionaires in the state of Connecticut that pay the same percent of income tax as me and you. People who can lease.
People are getting laid off. People are getting laid off, and the fact of the matter is, it's been going on and normalized for way too long. And now is the time. Now is the time. This is a very quote unquote blue state. I find it to be very liberal. I know what Malcolm X told me about the white liberals. And we need to really understand what that means because we have agencies receiving money from state and federal. And really, they say one thing when they apply for the grant and they do something else when they actually have the grant. You know,
Yep.
we don't see that level of, our inclusion. Where are we on these decision making boards? Where are we? What about us? And that's what we need. And as you said, people need to get to the polls. We can sit in somebody's backyard and talk about it till we're blue in the face. But until you execute your rights, you have the right. You can't talk about the change if you're not part of it. Then shut the F up. Just shut up. Okay?
Well, I mean, and the change comes by throwing out hate language,
Hmm.
hate speech on Facebook. And we've
Oh,
got
yeah.
Black people here in Hamden that's placating hate speech on pages all over the Facebook, all over the platform.
It's funny you mention that
So when
because
somebody ends up dead,
hmm
God forbid, I'm going to call that person up and I'm going to ask her. I'm going to say, so why didn't you shut it down?
well, she's busy being a servant, right? Because that particular page, I dare say Hamden Crime Watchers, blamed New
How dare
Holtville.
you?
Yeah, Hamden Crime Watchers blamed New Holtville for its uptick in crime. And it's kind of funny because I attended the Hamden Police Commissioners meeting, and at the beginning of the meeting, two of the members of the police commission were talking about how the crime went down.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. I don't know how it is on that side of town, but when I come home, I lock my car. And people need to understand that this page is advocating a level of violence that's very, very dangerous. Because we have frontline workers who are leaving work at midnight, minding their good business. And then you have people on this page advocating and inciting hateful behavior. And one of them is even an OR nurse at a hospital. I cannot imagine being at that hospital, and waiting to be screened for anything, especially COVID. And people need to understand this is happening right here, right now. We have people who are going to Yale Hospital and being sent home because they don't have enough COVID symptoms. But when you look at the color of their skin or their age or ask them if they have a disability, then you find out, hey, wait a minute, you didn't get screened properly, and Yale is getting away with this right here, right now. So when you have one person say this happened to them, then two, then three, why would anybody want to go to Yale if they feel like they have COVID? Why would they want to wear a mask? Why would they think it's real? Why?
I mean, people still talking about being locked and loaded. I'm locked and loaded.
Hmm.
I'm ready to
Yeah, why
go. You
not?
come on my property, I got you. They're
Hmm.
doing the broken arrow sign, which is the
Hmm.
call sign for the Trump movement of
Hmm.
white terror.
Hmm.
Broken arrow military call sign. It's not
Hmm.
military. That's not a military call sign. That's the Trump movement call sign.
Well, isn't this the
On
same
the
page where they were talking about letting the
page,
dogs loose?
I don't say anything else. I don't listen. I don't call anybody. I don't say anything because you know what? This goes back to where we're talking about with Martin Luther King today, and he says, and
Hmm.
I quote: "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of
Of
our
our
friends."
enemies, sons of our friends. Yes. Hmm.
Enough said. It's the
Enough said.
silence of our friends, the lukewarm affirmation of our friends who allowed that mess that happened on January 6th.
That's right.
Donald Trump has incited and said these urban centers, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Detroit, Phoenix, Milwaukee, they all of that fraud. He said it all the time. There's thousands and thousands of fraud going on. He basically tried to delegitimize the black vote. What he did was he roused his base by trying to overturn the validity of the black vote. He tried to undo the Voting Rights Act of
Oh,
1965. He
absolutely.
wanted them to stop counting. When they got
He
to
didn't
those,
want them to vote.
he
He
said,
attacked the
"Stop the
postal
count."
service. Remember? When people wanted, so they launched their absentee ballots, And what does he do conveniently? He attacks the post office. So now you have everybody saying, oh my God, my vote won't be counted. He instilled fear into the vote and people went right for it. And now this is why I have to give a shout out to Stacey Abrams again. Because she said, oh yeah, hold on, bet. That's what she said.
Hold on.
Hold on, give me a minute.
Hold
Give me a
on.
minute. My handle this real quick. And that's what happened. And this is what people need to take. I mean, if anything, she is the epitome of where the dream was supposed to go right now, if you ask me, because she
Well, the
picked up
dream
what
is the people going to the polls.
right.
We the people select our leaders.
Yes.
I mean, and so what she did is she said, and also in Arizona as well. They said that those two states have always had the potential to be blue states. They
Right.
just had been so disenfranchised and their vote had been so suppressed for
I
so many
believe it.
generations that it wasn't until they got a real ground game going to knock doors and register people to vote and energize and get those people out to the polls. And then you saw what happened. You had two elections. You had the runoff and you had the general, and it just looked totally different. Um, so nightmare or dream. Where are we?
I think it's a nightmare. I think we have a lot of work to do. I think that if we really want to see this happen, now is the time to do it and to really say enough is enough. We had enough. We took the polls. We see how they feel about it. Let's just be real. They didn't like that. Well, let's get them angrier. I'm all for it. Don't stop now. Don't stop now, because now you have the police and the Proud Boys at war. We need to make sure that we pick up ourselves and go and
That's a
fix this
scary
and make
prospect.
hmm
That's a scary prospect because
hmm
I mean, I'm watching this. All these, so many people were military, former military,
Oh
retired
yeah.
firefighters, off-duty police officers.
hmm
Holy crap, right? Like, holy crap.
None of whom are trained to de-escalate. That's the thing. These aren't people who are trained to de-escalate. These are people who are trained. They're very trained to do certain things a certain way. So they didn't go there to shake hands and have a conversation. They went there, to really show their ass, and they did. They
My
did.
God. Well, I mean, I think we are not realizing Dr. King's dream. Um, I can't even I can't even foresee that the dream is even in the foreseeable future.
Right.
Because people have to want to have equality. It's just not going to
hmm
happen. It's not going to materialize. It's not going to just show up on our doorstep. You got to want to have equality. And we have an active part of our country who is actively, politicking against equality. I mean, like, they don't want it. They want their country back to where, they didn't have to live next door to Black people or brown people. They didn't have to deal with Muslims. They didn't have to deal with LGBTQ people. They didn't have to deal with immigrants. They want their country back to where those people lived in those neighborhoods and that their neighborhoods were free. They want the fencing back up, all those fences and walls and all those things that were up. They want them back up again, and that you're not allowed to go live in the community.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I wish somebody would tell me I'm wrong. I mean, they were saying, we want to be free. I want my country back. I'm watching the footage. This is what they're saying. I saw it.
Well, that will take the white people to recognize our pain, right? Because right now, there's a lot of white guilt, a lot of white fear, a lot of white tears. You know, the whitest of white. I mean, really, we paid the price before, and I'm very conscious of us being targeted now because even in the midst of their BS, we still become an object of their affection. So now is the time for us to get up and stand up. The poor people fed up. We've been paying for privilege for too long. They've been on our necks for so long we forget how our neck feel. It's time for us to be real about how we feel. I kind of feel deja vu esque myself because I feel like how I felt when Obama won. and I had people questioning both sides of the fence, you know, my blackness on both sides, and it was very weird. Like, again, we're at this point, except this time it was two things that happened. Black people and brown people led us to the votes, and the white people showed their true color. You know, they showed themselves. And I think as black and brown people, this is where we take a step back and we say, are you really satisfied? And it's like you said, is this the dream? I don't think so. I think that we're taking it because that's what we're given, but I don't think so.
No, I agree. No, this outcry is a referendum on us and our ability to even have the ability to vote. Why should we even have a damn say?
Right.
This, you know, this act of terror and this attack on our democracy and on the Constitution of the United States of America is basically saying, since, you know, we want our country back where their vote didn't count.
Right.
We don't have to listen to their vote.
Right.
And they ball it up into this, and you know, our president was really good at balling it into, he was really able to market it into fraud. It had to be fraud, has to be fraud, can't be anything, because you black lady could not have legitimately and honestly gone to the polls with your ID and registered and actually put the little bubble under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Right. There had to be some, you know, and it goes back to you know, a whole culture being criminalized. So because just think about it, if you're the culture, if you guys are the ones that put us over the top to get, you know, to get the change this administration, and you're the one that put them over the top, and you guys are historically the criminals, then it had to be fraud. Had to be fraud. So, I mean, and like, this is what I'm trying to get everybody to understand. And like, listen, you know, I've been trying to, like, really, since this whole thing went down, November 3rd happened and the election went by, it's like, where, like, the Attorney General, Bill Barr, he said, we've investigated everything. We don't see any widespread fraud. I mean, I find it hard to believe that Susan Weissowitz and Denise Merrill would call down to New Jersey and say, let's come together and let's agree that we're going to put in X amount of fake and phony dead people ballots.
Right.
And that when I get off the phone, next time, let's include Georgia, let's include Pennsylvania. Let's have a big conference call. And we're going to all agree that we're going to throw in X amount of fake dead people ballots. And that way we can win this thing. States don't even get along like that. They don't even get along like that, you know? They had to compete with each other for COVID stuff, testing, supplies, relief, PPE. I mean, I can't imagine Denise Merrill calling up, you know, Pennsylvania saying, how many dead people votes do you want me to throw in?
No. No, but you know, as Dr. King said, an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And while we'll say that they would not have done that, we have folks such as Rob Sampson that will get down low if he needs to. You know what I mean? Also in saying that the time is always right to do what is right, also said by Dr. King. And I feel like right now, white people need to let us lead. This is not about you. This is about us. You all showed yourself. Go handle your business. Go fix your stuff. But if you're really about our liberation and us being, go fix yourself. Get your people. Go handle your business. All right. Go do that. But if you're being legitimate about us being equal to you, then act like it. Offer us that opportunity to act as equals. Stop telling us, giving us excuses. We're getting the education, we're getting the experience, but we're getting effed over every step of the way. Because it all comes down to, if we're not compliant, you get rid of us, you know. But then you do favors for each other. Like, this is all types of coded behavior here. And again, deja vu with Obama. I appreciate all the white people who voted for Obama. Thank you very much. But if you felt like that was your civil duty, then you have a lot to learn, brother and sister. Like it's more to it than that. Oh, I'll do the right thing. I'll vote for the black man. Oh, I'll do the right thing. I'll vote for the black woman, the brown woman. That's not how this goes. It does not end at the polls. It goes to the job. It goes everywhere. It goes from the streets to the HR office to the hospitals. It goes everywhere. And this is why this is the people's inauguration. And the people, if you thought you couldn't do something, find out how you can. Stop sitting there and complaining in silence and find out how you could be heard. If you're scared to vote, if you're scared to organize, if you don't know how to vote, if you don't know how to organize, let me tell you something. Yes, your friend Ned Lamont extended the moratorium, whatever, how you ever pronounce it. But then we have brothers and sisters, families, children that are about to be homeless in February. This thing didn't just attack Connecticut, it attacked the entire United States. The thing is with Connecticut, Connecticut is one of the richest states in the United States and home to one of the richest schools in the world, which is Yale University. Hold them accountable. And you know why Justin Elicker wouldn't do it? Because he's a Yale alumni. Why should you care? Why should Kurt care about hateful language on Hamden crime watchers when he is white and it's not coded toward him? He does not care. And when you sit down and you think about it, you really telling me you all made a whole page and found 20, how many people to follow your foolishness because you all want to close your door? Are you serious? And waging war on New Holville? Are you kidding me? Come on.
Let me read you another excerpt. I have a dream. So you tell me what you think. There we go. He said, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. And so we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note. Come on, somebody. I know you hear me out there. They were writing a promissory note to which every American was to fall to air. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And it's obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. Now, this was over 50 years ago. Still applicable today.
Well, I mean, a lot of what you said, it still is.
That march last on January 6th, and that insurrection was a march on making sure that that check remained insufficient.
Of course. Of course. I mean, he also said the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at the time of challenge and controversy. And whether we like it or not, and even though we as Black and brown people are not part of whatever that you all want to call it, that happened at the 6th at Washington, D.C., let us not forget a young Black activist was spat on by a Trump supporter right here in Hartford, Connecticut. So the problem is right here. And we are in a time of challenge and controversy. And the question is, what are we going to do about it? And, you add to that the fact that folks have been stuck between their four walls. There's a lot of feelings happening here. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of, a lot of different emotions, anxiety. It's a lot going on, but it's real. And, not all of us come from, not all of us have a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever the case is. Some of us have to lean on each other a little harder, you know, and be blessed with that because some people have nobody, you know.
Yeah.
But it's a hard time. And now is the time not to ask, but to demand. Because to go back to what you started off saying, we didn't even start dreaming yet. Have we realized it? No. You know, we're still sleeping.
We can't wake up from the nightmare.
Can't wake
Okay.
up.
We can't
Yeah.
wait. Listen, Dr. King gets even, boy, he gets jiggy with it. Let me tell you what else he said.
Mhm.
He said, but we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt.
Mm.
We refuse to
Mhm.
believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. And so we've come to cash this check, a check that will give us upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. All right.
Mhm.
And he said, we also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is the time. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. How about that? Right? Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time. Is that even more? Doesn't it? I mean, just think of it. Just let that settle in for a moment. Just marinate on that. Are those words written over 50 years ago even more powerful and poignant and soul stirring today as they ever have been? I mean, just now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. That's a mic drop moment right there. You know, I mean, to lift our nation from the quicksand of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is to make time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. This was his dream. We're not there yet.
No, no, we're not. And you know, the thing is that you know, we never really got past that. You know, again, I think we got satisfied. We said, "Oh, that's good enough," because like typical slaves, you take the crumbs, right? So, for instance, going back to here in Connecticut, we have people being underpaid and overworked, exploited, used, disposed of, however you want to call it. But it happens right here, right now. That's why there's so many wage theft and actions against agencies for, you know, different types of things because we are heavily exploited in the job market and in the housing market and in the prison system. You know, we're exploited. And, you know, we've become so used to criminalizing ourselves. People are even starting feeling sorry for these fools who did this foolishness. I mean, imagine this one asked his mother saying he needs organic food. When the hell did the person have a menu? You get what you get, bro. Handle your business. You wanted to do the crime? Eat the food.
You cannot make this stuff up. I
Go ahead and pretend it's McDonald's. That's not my problem. I think we should all write letters about that right there and say we're not paying for organic food. My tax money is not paying. You know what? If you're gonna do that, free Bill Cosby. There, I said it. If you're gonna do that, you gotta feel Bill. Free Bill. Free Bill.
So it's still a nightmare. I mean, you know, I mean, I don't know what to say. I have a pandemic where almost 400,000 Americans are dead. And I was watching all these videos of the things that we were doing back in February. All of us were together. We all easily could have gotten it and died. We didn't even know it existed. You know, I mean, then you got George Floyd with the knee. You got Rayshard Brooks with a couple bullets in his couple slugs in his back. You got Jacob Blake with slugs in his back. You know, you got 17 billionaires here in the state of Connecticut languishing down in Greenwich, Connecticut, when there's people living in a damn tent on Orange Street in New Haven, Connecticut. I would say
and by El Grasso, yeah,
in his grave right now, along with Malcolm and Medgar and
hungry.
Frederick. They're
That's
all
right.
rolling in the grave right now.
They're rolling over. They're sitting there. Listen, Marcus, I'm glad you brought up Marcus Garvey because it's him, Selassie, Malcolm X. They all sitting there. They're saying to Martin, "I'm sorry, brother. We didn't expect your birthday to go like that. We thought it would have been better."
I'm
Huey sitting
sorry.
there. Huey like, "What the hell happened?" You know. And these people you're speaking of, none of them stepped forward here during COVID. None of them. I didn't hear about any of them, but yet Yale is saying, oh, let's test our students daily. Let's make sure they have this because they want that housing money. If they cared about our city so much that they occupy so much space in, why didn't you open up the dorms? Why didn't you make that as centers for people at risk of losing their housing?
Oh, I got a really great idea. Right? Why don't you offer that testing to some of the people at the public schools so the kids can go back
That's
to
right.
school?
That's right.
You guys devise your own instant test. So why don't you take your instant test and offer it to the public school kids and the staff?
Since you care so much.
I think Mr. Lee, I don't know, but I think he might have COVID. Simone's engineering teacher, because he gave everybody a nice little email that kind of sounded like a send off. I was like, oh my God.
Oh my God.
I hope he's okay. I mean, they're not going to tell us because of HIPAA, but
that's terrible.
Why don't you say we're going to set up tents, come to our campus and get testing? Parents and students and teachers and admin.
Mm-hmm.
Board of Ed, why don't you make
use the campus so the students can socially distance? Because the thing about it is a lot of these schools, these New Haven public schools, are very old. These are old buildings.
Yes.
Old buildings is not the same as cleaning a newer building. You could clean it as much as you want, use all the lights all you want. It will still contain germs. That is a fact.
The ventilation.
Yes, the vents are. Oh my God, they're old. A lot, and it's not even just the schools. It's a lot of businesses. They have old vents because nobody thought this was going to happen.
And the vaccine is right around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
It's right around the corner. Can we wait just another couple of months and the vaccine will be here?
What about the fact that the number of residents, including children, in New Haven are Medicaid recipients, and you're not hearing about anything about them being offered a vaccine? And no concern. Like there's no concern. So our most impoverished will once again suffer. We cannot let that happen. We can't.
I'm going to read some of the comments before we sign off because I know I got you around for an hour. And then you go back to having your fun. So Marty Hebron want to know, what school does Elliker's child go to? That school is the magical school where there's no COVID in that building. As soon as you walk in, COVID is gone. It's a magical school. Help me, somebody. And then Marnie also said, don't forget South Hamden. They've been taking things like the rec center and a Stop and Shop, but don't want Black folks in Upper Hamden. Sure don't.
Ooh.
And then she said we should boycott taxes until they put our tax dollars back in our community. That's what I've been saying.
Mm-hmm.
And Tiffany French Goff said that the Hamden, I think she's speaking about the Hamden Crime Watchers page, is totally hateful.
Mm-hmm.
And Marnie said, yeah, they start. And Marnie also said that the United States is a laughing stock. We turn out to be the worst country in the world. And Dewan Eastman, he's our co-host on Saturday's Race Talk. And he said that, basically Donald Trump was saying that the Black vote wasn't relevant.
That's right.
Right. It shouldn't have been counted.
No. And should we know that Dr. King is also, like Stacey Abrams, from Atlanta. So shout out to Atlanta, not once but twice. And this is something very significant considering the political background of Atlanta. What she did there is nothing short of amazing. I mean, it is absolutely amazing. And it is to be respected. And it can and it should happen here. And again, if people are truly serious about progress, then give up your seat. From the nonprofit, to the for-profit, to
the state.
That's right. Give up your seat. Pay your people. Recognize your town. Don't just use us and expose of us. You dispose of us when you're done. You expose us, dispose us. We're not toilet paper. Stop doing that. And a lot of us have sacrificed. I mean, you think about the home health aides, grocery store clerk, gas station clerks,
parents teaching their kids from home.
Parents teaching their kids from home. Why didn't we use this time to revise the curricula and make it more substantial? Give us back our education. Give us back our education. Why didn't you pay stipends to all of us? It's not easy having your kids at home. And I do both. I work, you do both. You do both. We all do both. We're doing both. We're working. Really. I mean, if you're at home and you're schooling your child, you are working. It's a job, because you got to make sure to do this. You got to make sure to do that. They got to do this. They got to do that. Because there were no changes. Nobody wants to accept that this thing is real. And that is a big part of the problem. That's a huge part of the problem. And I would also like to know what school Justin Ellicker's child is at. I believe it's on the Board of Ed. Uh, I believe he shared that information while on the Board of Ed meeting, his last meeting, wherein he was very excited about his child returning. Okay? He didn't ask or care about our children. In the same fashion, let us not forget, when these fascists wanted to have their meeting this Saturday and meet at the IKEA parking lot, he waited till after IKEA said something to assert himself as a leader of Black and brown people to say he's not having it here. Again, I don't care about your white tears and your white guilt. Okay, all of us are working hard here. To all the parents who are home and you're homeschooling, yes, that is a job. I get you. It's hard. We have very little to work with. Give the poor people some relief. Give the working people some relief. Enough is enough now. Enough is enough, and it needs to stop. And I really hope that one day, someday, we can live his dream. And as Martin said, when you are right, you cannot be too radical. When you are wrong, you cannot be too conservative. That's a lot. That's a lot he just said there. So don't be afraid to take that action because the time is now. We've been quiet and browbeaten for too long. Enough is enough. Aren't you tired of the big white lie? I know I am.
Well, I want to close this out
Yes.
with some words from Martin.
There we go.
And thank everybody for joining us for this hour to kind of talk a little bit about Martin's I Have a Dream speech, Dr. King, his legacy of peaceful protest for equality and justice, and ending the brutality of Jim Crow that was raging in the South in the 1960s, the lynchings, the disappearance, the rapes, the murders.
We're not getting lynched, we're getting put in solitary. That's right. The difference. And we're getting our knees on necks.
Now
we're getting shot at.
It's a different date, but same old song.
That's right. Revised.
So let me just give you this last little snippet from his I Have a Dream speech. He said it would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. The sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. Those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now become again content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. That's another mic drop. Dr. King did it. So we'll see y'all back here on Wednesday. We're going to be doing a inauguration full day starting at 10 o'clock in the morning. We're going to do every half hour. We're going to do live check-ins for whoever wants to come on and say a few words about what the inauguration means to them this really interesting election year, and discuss, what you're expecting to get from the Biden administration. And at between 4 and 6, we'll be having a car caravan. And you already mentioned that, CJ, that will be starting at IKEA.
4 o'clock.
And we'll be doing that and then having a press conference at 5 o'clock
at City Hall.
City Hall. Yes, in the front steps of the City Hall at 5 o'clock, between 5 and 6. So those who are interested, please come by. It's just, again, to talk about the this whole moment. I mean, you got 25,000 troops over here at the Capitol. You got barbed wire in military vehicles because of one person has re-energized, the undertones of what's always been present in our society. And I think we need to talk more about it. because really, just like Dr. King said, you know, it would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. And that was back in 1963. So here we are, you know, 50 something years later, and we're still here.
Still here.
So, you know, thank y'all for watching. I appreciate everybody and your support. This is so much fun. Don't we enjoy coming on to Hamden Action Now's Facebook page? It's totally cool. And we hope we're educating our community. And so thank you, CJ, again. I'm going to let you go. And we're going to go back to having our fun on Wednesday, starting at 10 o'clock. We want everybody to go ahead and join us. And we enjoy all of your support for our programming. And thank you and have a good night and enjoy the rest of your day.